Thank you everyone for joining me today to learn a little bit more about Naviate Architecture. We're going to be going over the commands and features within Naviate over the next, let's say, roughly an hour. So I really hope that you guys enjoy what we're going to cover today. Of course, I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Sheer Ehrlich. I am one of the Naviate product owners. I'm the product owner for Naviate Accelerate. A little bit background about myself. My background is in architecture. I worked as a BIM manager, or in the BIM industry, you could say, with various different types of firms, from architecture firms to structural engineering firms, with construction companies. I came to Microdesk and was a technical consultant here, specialized in BIM implementation. And while working with many firms across our industry, I noticed a lot of the inefficiencies within just using Revit or other Autodesk products, and then taught myself Dynamo, became one of the Microdesk Dynamo experts so that I can kind of automate and streamline the things that I didn't want to be bogged down, the mundane tasks. And that led me to join the Naviate team to help develop different products so that other people can also become faster and better and work smarter within Revit. So to get us started, I just want to talk about what Naviate is. For those of you who are new to Naviate, who have never heard of Naviate, who haven't used any of the products, or are just getting started. Now, today I'm going to show you Naviate Architecture, but we're more than just one product. We are an entire product line for all trades, one team that you guys can work with, one solution to streamline all of your workflows, and really one entire ecosystem for your Autodesk products. Because we have products focused on Revit, BIM 360, and the Autodesk Construction Cloud, as well as Civil 3D. And so we're really one entire Naviate portfolio. We have products for each of these things, but also so much more that I'm going to cover today. We have products like architecture, structure, MEP, site and landscaping, fabrication, cloud manager, and much, much more. And I always like to say that we are AEC professionals developing products. Like myself, I come from an architectural background, developing for AEC professionals like yourselves. We know the problems, we've done it, we've been in the grind, creating those drawings and those models, so we know the problems, and now we're creating solutions for you. And we're really going to focus today on the Naviate for Revit product line. Specifically, Naviate Architecture and Accelerate. So for those of you who are new, if you are looking at purchasing Naviate Architecture, Accelerate is another product. However, it comes for free with Naviate Architecture. So when you purchase Architecture, you're going to get everything within Accelerate, and everything I show you today is going to come within that same package. And so Naviate for Revit as a whole is really focused on helping Revit users work smarter and is targeted at streamlining the entire project workflow, from project setup, data management, modeling, documentation, and document management. We have commands and features within our entire Naviate for Revit portfolio, which covers all of these different aspects of your project lifecycle. And today, we're going to cover Naviate as an architect. We also have products for other disciplines, but me as an architect, I'm going to use the Naviate for Architecture products and show you architectural workflows that help to streamline your different aspects within Revit using Naviate. And these are the workflows that I'm going to be showcasing today. So we're going to first look at creating building zones. Now, this is specific maybe to, if you can think about having a grouping of rooms that create zones, like an apartment, right? In your apartment, you have, or when you're designing apartments, you have bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens, different things. So that's going to consist of having different areas. How are you going to be transferring data between areas and rooms? How are you going to create drawings of those different apartments? That's what I'm going to show you in the first workflow. Then we're going to look at placing and managing furniture families. How can I easily gain access to my company's folder structure full of all of the families that I need within my project? How can I easily place all of them in my model? Then manage their data. And as architects, we are visual learners. So how can I then visualize that data rather than, always seeing it in a table or something else? And then we're going to look at managing our room finishes, actually creating those 3D floor finishes, wall finishes, ceiling finishes based off of our rooms, and then creating room drawings from that. Looking at door and window management, being able to number our doors and windows with a variety of parameters specifically based off of our room numbers, and being able to create those door or window drawings to put into our documentation set. And lastly, putting together an entire sheet sets for our plans, having to easily create those plans, create those sheets, and then batch modifying data of our sheet sets. That's what we're going to look at today. And we're specifically going to start, obviously, with creating our building zones. Like I mentioned, this is going to be an example focused on when you're designing an apartment building and how to go from, creating those areas to actually defining those plans for each apartment. So here I have my apartment building. I have 2 different towers with different layouts of different apartments, and I've already generated my area plans. Within my area plans, I have those different apartments laid out with those rooms grouped. And I'm gonna come over and use Naviate Architecture. And the first thing I'm gonna do is create 3D zones of my area. Now, this is great, first and foremost, to visualize that area in 3D, but also we're going to use this to push data from our Revit areas to our Revit plans. And because my design is the same on every single level, I can create one to go through the bottom floor to the top floor. But if I had a different design on every level, I could do this, repeat this for every single level. Once those 3D zones are created, I'm going to come over to Naviate Accelerate and use my right parameter feature to do exactly what I mentioned, pushing data from my area into my rooms using that 3D zone I just generated, because Naviate's going to identify which rooms are within that 3D zone, allow me to specify the parameter that I want to push that data to, and which value I want to push it to. Now, this custom parameter I created is only in my room category, so it's only going to do it for rooms, but I can actually do this for any Revit category. Once I finish pushing that data, I'm going to want to start setting up my plans. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is create, my generic parent plans that I'll then create dependent views for. I'm going to come over and use my create views feature where I can select which levels I'm creating these views for, and select which view type I want to create, even specifying a template. Now, in this feature, I could also use scope boxes to create dependent views. We're going to do that a little bit later though, because right now I'm going to do it based off of my areas. So now that I have my, parent plans created, I can then create the specific dependent views based off of those areas. I'm going to open that view and then come back to Naviate Architecture, which has a specific feature for doing just this. I'm going to use my zone views command, which will allow me to group those rooms based off of a specific parameter or the data within that parameter. And we're obviously going to pick the parameter we just used and just push those values to in the previous command. And in just a few seconds, it grouped those rooms into those specific areas, and I have a view for each one of my apartments. And my apartments right now are rectangular shaped, but if I had any shape, L shapes, different shapes, it would group it because it is a crop region, not a scope box. And it identifies which walls encompass those rooms and make sure to include those as well. And that's basically it for my zones. I have my plans created, and now I can copy that to all of the other floor plans for this specific example, obviously, if I had a different design on every floor plan, I would repeat the previous command for each floor. But in this case, I'm going to duplicate that set of dependent views using this feature to all the other zone plans I have because they're exactly the same. So in a few seconds, I basically have everything done for every single level. I have all my views created, and now I can start designing my different apartments. And that brings us to our next workflow, which is adding those furniture elements to start that design process, right? Now I can add furniture elements to add to the designs of those different rooms. One issue that we always have with adding furniture elements from maybe our company's library is finding that library. With out-of-the-box Revit, I have to locate that location every single time. And for each family I want to place, I have to run the command independently. And this can be really cumbersome. And if people don't know where that location is, they're going to be downloading it from the internet, bringing in maybe families that are too large or corrupted or don't align with the company standards. And then we're going to look at how to manage data for those families and then how to visualize that data. Because like I said, we're all visual learners. So we're going to use the first feature to bring those families in. Again, here's my apartment, and I'm going to use Naviate Accelerate's Family Browser. This is going to give me access to add any folder location that I have access to, whether that be on a network or local location. I can add many folders and look at the structure within to easily find the different families I need. And you can see here that I do get a visual representation, a little axon of that family so that I can find it, look for it, know exactly what I'm placing, and even get some data like which types are located within that family and some custom parameters of that family. And I can directly place it in here while I have this command open. So I can go through doing this multiple times, placing multiple families for all my different rooms, whether that be beds or sofas, tables, chairs, everything I need, without having to, close the commands and open it again. So this is really going to help me avoid placing elements that I don't want my users placing, because I can switch from different folder locations, whether that be, based off of regions or however your company wants to organize it. Once I have everything placed, I'm going to quickly place even more things to really get that design laid out. And because I can see everything right here, I can play around with different designs, placing different types of elements, different types of furnitures, and being able to work with that database that I already have for my company. And one last element. So now that we've placed everything to design our rooms, we want to work on getting data into those families. Specifically in this example, I want to push my room number and name into the family so I can schedule each family and group them to the room that they're located in. I'm going to use my combine feature here, which gives me access to all of the parameters of any category really within my project. I even get access, for example, to the room parameters. And what combine allows me to do is select multiple parameters that I want, even add a suffix or a prefix, and then push that concatenated values to another parameter. So I have a custom parameter that I've added for my furniture elements, and I can save this, which is going to come in handy in a little bit when I'm going to automate pushing those or updating those values. So right now I'm just going to push those values this one time, and we can see that now my furniture elements have the correct room number and name added to them. And like I said, I want to visualize that. We're going to use our color elements feature, which allow us to again specify a category and any either instance or type parameter within that category and add a coloring to them. And we can just do it right now or add that to our templates so that we can see it across all of our maybe working plans. But of course, designs are not static. I'm going to change designs, change types, change families, remove them, copy them, add them. And while I'm making those changes, it's probably not going to be in a view that's colorized like this. So I'm not going to be able to see that those parameters are out of date because I'm making them quickly. I'm in maybe a documentation view, and therefore I want a way to automatically update those values for this specific parameter of my rooms without me having to think about it. And Naviate will do just that. With our update project, we can select from any of these parameters or any of these functions that Naviate has and specify if we want it to be synced every time we save, every time we print or export, sync the model, or even manually. And once I have that set up, I can simply save the model and you'll see that those values automatically get updated. I mean, how nice is it to make sure that those values are updated without us having to think about it? So now that we've added our furniture, let's go add some other finishes to our rooms. That's going to be our next workflow with creating and managing room finishes. Here, we're going to look at utilizing our rooms to create our floor finishes, ceiling finishes, or wall finishes, using different filtering techniques to filter these different types of rooms, and then create our room drawings. So we're again going to look at that same floor plan. And in this case, you can obviously see that we have different types of rooms, right? Bathrooms, bedrooms, living rooms. And these rooms don't tend to have the same finishes, right? Bathrooms use tiles, living rooms, maybe wood flooring, kitchens, a different tile. And so we're going to use Naviate to create filters for those different types of rooms. The Naviate Filter Elements feature allows me to customize these filters and then use these filters for selection to select the different elements. So these filters are going to be similar to what you're used to with, the Revit rule-based filters that we use for our visibility and graphic settings. I can add from any either instance or type parameters. So I'm going to first specify the level because I want them to just be those tower rooms that are above level 4, and then just use my name to specify the bathroom, for example. Once we have our filters created the way we want them, we can save them, and then we're going to use them to select our rooms to create our finishes. And you can see that I already have the other room types generated, other filters for the room types generated. And then once I have those filters set up, I'm going to use two commands in tandem here. I'm going to use my quick filter select, which will allow me to easily run through the filters and select all the different elements. And it's going to do it on the whole project, not just the view. And then go and use my Naviate Architecture Create Coverings feature. This is going to allow me to create those floor finishes, wall finishes, or ceiling finishes, the actual 3D elements. I can select from any floor type or ceiling type or wall type in my project, and specify offsets based off of my levels. So for example, I'm going to, for my rooms, I can specify the different ceiling heights. Maybe in the bathroom, I need a ceiling height that's a little bit lower because I need to have more duct work that goes in the ceiling. Maybe in the bedroom, it's a little bit higher. So this really allows me to customize all the different types of finishes for those different types of rooms easily. And you can see that as they're being generated in the floor plan, we have the different hatch patterns for those different finishes. So this is, I want to emphasize, it is creating that 3D element. And there we go. I'm done creating all the finishes for all the different types of rooms. And once I have my finishes generated, I can create my room drawings. Now, before, with out-of-the-box Revit, I need one sheet per room with the floor plan, the ceiling plan, and all the elevations, and I would have to go and make all of those views by myself in the sheet and place them on the sheets. But Naviate is going to do all of that for me. I can select from all of the different rooms in my project and then specify how I want those views to look. by specifying which views, the view types being used. I can do floor plans, ceiling plans, elevations, and a 3D view. And then even customize the sheet, like use which title block to use, what number to use, and even a parameter for my project browser organization. And like I said, Naviate's going to do all of the work for me. It's going to go ahead and create all of those views, create the sheet, and then place all of those views on those sheets for each individual room. And there we have it. We have our room drawings created. We can then, annotate the different plans and really begin to add details to those different drawings. There we go. So now that we have our rooms created and generated, our room drawing set up, we're getting our project, cleaned up. We also want to clean up our doors, because once we've numbered all our rooms, we probably need to number all our doors as well. And with numbering doors, I mean, it's just a really painful process to have to, see all of those door numbers, all those room numbers, add all the numbers based off of our rooms, and as designs change, constantly updating it. Naviate allows us to streamline all of that and then create our legend door drawings afterwards. And that's what we're going to go over right now. So as you can see in my floor plan, I have my rooms numbered, but my doors don't match. And this is throughout my entire building. So I have a really quite large building here, 12 floors, and I have to go through and number every single door here. Naviate Architecture has door and windows tools that are quite similar, or actually they're exactly the same, but I'm going to show you it on the doors for this example. Now in my door UID, I can customize exactly how I want them named and create a custom concatenation of different parameters. In this example, we're going to do something super simple, just using our room number and a sequential number. And I can customize it further by adding a suffix or a prefix, and even specify either numeric or alphanumeric styling for that sequential number. And once I have that all set up, I simply hit to update, and it's really going to update every single door in my entire project. But this isn't it. I can add any room or door parameters that I need. So just give it a moment. You're going to get your manage UIDs where you can preview it and make other changes that I'm not going to go over today. And there we have it. All of the doors are successfully renumbered based off of those settings. And like I mentioned, this is throughout the entire project, not just this level. But, these numbers are based on the two room. People are always asking me, well, what if I have rooms or doors that are flipped and I need it to number it based off of the from room? I'm sure you've had many instances like this. And we have an example of that right here, where it is a door that is flipped and needs to be numbered from the from room rather than the to room. And that could be based off of the egress or a variety of different things. Well, when you run this command, Naviate will add a parameter, and you can select the door and specify to reverse the room association. And because this is a parameter, it'll always be there. You just have to do it one time, run the command again, and there it will reverse the room association and number it based off of the room you want it to. So you can really customize how it's being numbered in many different ways. This is just one example, but there is even way more to the door numbering that I don't have time to show you today. And just like I showed you with the furniture elements, there's also a way to manage your parameters for doors and any parameter. With your parameter configuration in Naviate Accelerate, you can customize which parameter it's pushing this data to. For doors, it defaults to mark, but you can actually pick any instance parameter within your project to push that data to. And just like with our furniture elements, we want to automate this so that every time we change our room numbers, it will automatically update the doors as well without us having to think about it. So just like we did with our furniture parameters, we're gonna tell Naviate that we want it to be updated every time we sync, but also every time we specify update now manually, making sure our settings are correct, hitting OK. And now when I click that update now button in my update project, it will update all of the doors. So as I'm adding doors, changing rooms, making all of the design changes that I'm constantly doing on a daily basis, that my other project teams are doing, now with Naviate, I can just set it and forget it really. And there we have it. It'll update all of those door numbers to accommodate those changes. And now that all of our doors are set up, like I promised before, we're going to create our door drawings. These are going to be our legend drawings. Then we can make it from legends or from views. With Naviate, I can create these door drawings based off of doors showing up in a schedule or all of the different door types. And this is going to be similar to what we just did with the room drawings. I can customize which view type to create for my elevations and my plans, and which tag to use, and if I want to show a schedule of the doors. Again, customizing how that appears on the sheet, what template to use, which sheet number to use, and then Naviate is going to do all the work for me. It's going to create all the views for each door type, going to create the sheet, going to create the schedules, and place it all on the sheet for me. And we do have that option to either use legends or views. I like to use views because I get that customization with the graphics that I don't get with legends, but it's up to you, and we have both options. So here we have our door sheet perfectly laid out with all the different types of doors we need, that plan generated, that elevation generated, those elevations automatically dimensioned, tags placed, and schedules made. All of that, as you saw, happened in less than a minute. Now, we've seen some incredible ways to create our sheets with creating them for our rooms and for our doors, but let's, finish up with just some generic sheets needing to be created for our floor plans. And we know the process. We have hundreds of floor plans needing to be created and placed on sheets, and we need to place in the exact same location. And using guide grids in Revit, it works okay, but it's still really tiresome. I have to open every single sheet, load the guide grid, place the plan, align it, so on and so forth. With Naviate, we can streamline all of that from the creation of the views to creating the sheets to placing the views on the sheets. And so in this example, instead of like in the first workflow with creating views based off of our areas, we're going to create them based off of our scope boxes, which is another option we have here. Same feature though as before, with selecting the levels, selecting the view type, but in this example, we're going to automatically just generate those dependent views in one action. We're going to create those parent views and those dependent views based off those scope boxes in one single command. So once it does create those create those views, we've got 27 views right there. We'll notice that when it did create the views, because it was essentially a copy, it didn't number them or name them correctly because we already had our overall plans named the same. So I'm going to use this amazing feature in Naviate Accelerate called Edit Parameter Values. This feature brings the power of Excel right here into Revit for you. I can edit any parameters for any categories, customize which parameters I want seen, and it'll show up in a data grid. And it will give me some of those favorite Excel editing features right here in Revit. I can select all of the views that I want to edit and run a find and replace so that I can find a specific value. Like in this case, I want to replace that floor with that one that identifies it as a copy, and replace it with another value. And in just a couple of seconds, it's done, and I can update those values. So once I have my names properly set, I'm going to move on to creating my sheets. So I have a template sheet that I'm going to start with, and then I can place my dependent views or any views that I want on that sheet. And this really gives me the customization to have that sheet look exactly like I want it, because I can place my views where I want them, and then use this as a template for creating all of my other sheets for all of my other plans. I'm going to use the Naviate Create Sheets feature. And like I said, I can specify any sheet for my project. It'll give me a preview of where those plans are located on those sheets, or drawings, but it doesn't have to be a plan. And then I can go through and select all the views that I want placed. And it's going to add them in that selection order, all of my A's in the same location and my B's in the same location. What is really nice here is I have other things that I can include as well. If I had legends on that sheet, I can also copy those to the new sheets created. And before even creating those sheets, I can edit some of those parameters. And this data grid is just like the one we saw with the edit parameter values. So I'm going to show you how we can use this data grid to do a fill copy. Like I said, this brings the power of Excel right here. Just like in Excel, I can do a fill copy, or even just do a selection and mass deletion. All of this is not available to do in out-of-the-box Revit. So this is going to make editing those values so much faster and easier. Now, simply create your sheets. And it's going to create those sheets and place those views on the sheets in one motion, and obviously placing them in the exact same location as the template that we had to work with. There we go, our sheets are created. But of course, sheets are never static, right? Let's say we created them, they look great, it's exactly the way we want it, but our PM came a week later and was like, wait a minute, this view is in the wrong location, and because we need to make room for a legend, a detail, whatever it is. And now we want to align all of the other views to the same location. Well, with Naviate, we can use our edit sheet parameter values. And this is not just to edit the location. We can edit any sheet parameters with that same data grid ability. But we also have that option to show our view locations. And this will allow us to essentially copy that location from the view that we moved to all the other views that we want to align. And same thing, we're gonna have that amazing data grid capabilities to do a fill copy in this example, rather than a fill increment, and then update those values, and we'll have our view locations in the exact same place for all our views in just a few seconds. And there we have it. Putting together our sheet set really is that simple with Naviate. So I just wanted to give kind of an overview of what we just looked at, because there was a lot of information there. We looked at creating our building zones, drawings of our different apartments really easily, being able to push data from those Revit areas to our Revit rooms, generating 3D elements from them, and creating our dependent views of the different apartments. We looked at placing and managing our furniture families, being able to easily work with our general company standard content, easily placing them so that we can change up our designs faster and quicker using Naviate's family browser. And then of course, editing or pushing data to our families, automatically updating it and visualizing it. We looked at creating our finishes, actual 3D floor, wall, and ceiling elements based off of our rooms, and then generating our room drawings from our rooms. We looked at our door and window management, being able to customize how doors and windows get numbered, being able to automate that just like we did with our furniture, so that every time a room number changes, the door numbers get updated, and then creating our door legend drawings. And lastly, just putting together a generic sheet set, creating dependent views, creating sheets based off of a template, and then aligning our views. So this is really just a small part of what Naviate can do. And it's a lot, but there's so much more that we haven't covered in Naviate, Accelerate, and Architecture. So this is just a glimpse of everything that's within Naviate, Accelerate, and Architecture. So of course I couldn't cover everything, but definitely reach out if you want to learn more about what you can do and how you can leverage Naviate, Accelerate, and Architecture to streamline your workflows. So I always like to say that with Naviate, like I mentioned before, that it's more than just a plugin, right? So we are an entire community. With Naviate, you have access to your license portal, our blog, the ideation portal, our help desk, an e-learning platform, and our e-store, because we don't want to just create products for you, but we want to work with you. And remember, really our goal is to help you work smarter. With the Symmetry License Portal, you can manage all of your Naviate licenses easily. You can follow the Naviate blog for tips and workflows for your Naviate solutions. In the Ideation Portal, you can add your ideas or see other ideas because we want Naviate to be for users by users. Connect and interact with other Naviate users in the Naviate community. At our help desk, you can see product instructional videos and documents. With Pinnacle's e-learning platform, you can find all guides on how to get started with Naviate. And lastly, our e-store, it makes it easy to buy Naviate. And you can see all this and more on the Naviate website. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms so that you can make sure that you stay up to date with any information about Naviate. And if you have any more questions, want to schedule a demo, or look at purchasing the product, please contact Microdesk either on our website or by phone or by email. And that brings us to the end of the presentation, and I'm gonna open up the questions portion. So if you have any questions, I see that there's already some questions in the chat, so you can add it in the GoToWebinar chat, and I'll go through and answer them best I can. So the first question we have is, does the out-of-the-box room schedule read the 3D objects created by the Create Coverings tool? So I think you're referring to the built-in parameters that are within rooms for room for the finish of the floor finish, ceiling finish, wall finish. No, it doesn't automatically read it, because what the Create Coverings tool does is it generates the 3D floor or the 3D ceiling or the 3D wall. So it's not actually pushing the data to the room, but we can use other commands like I showed you to get that data into the actual room parameters. Any other questions? Okay, well, if you do have any other questions at any time, you can definitely reach out to our Microdesk team, and we can help you, route you to the correct person and get you started with using Naviate Architecture. Thank you so much, everybody, and I look forward to working with each of you to help you work smarter.